This podcast is brought to you by Apex Motor Park. Want to get out on your bike this weekend? Head over to Apex Motor Park on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook and visit one of the best tracks in the country. Private hire bookings now being taken. Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Live Motocross podcast. And we've got a special one for you this week. Well, one, I've dragged Roger back on. I think we're just going to have him permanently now. Roger, say hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I was lost not doing one last week. I had to find something else to do. So it's great to be back. I thought you'd sacked me, but thankfully I'm back and looking forward to this one.
No, couldn't do that to you. So do you want to do the honours and intro our special guest?
Yes, indeed. The last podcast we did was with Lawrence Spence, one of the old school, old-time riders. Well, now we're bang up to date with one of the hottest prospects of British motocross has had for many a year. Welcome to the show, Adam Sterry.
Hello, guys. Well, hello. And nice to be here. My first podcast in this format, so... I feel privileged to be invited on, and hopefully we can discuss a few things and have fun.
That's it. It's a little bit different to normally being sat face to face at race meetings and stuff at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit.
So we wanted to kind of get you on the podcast, Adam, because we've got a load of questions for you, ranging from nations, GPs, youth riding, training, all sorts of stuff. So really, we want to start off with how did you get started with the bikes? Were you sort of a bit older going into it, or did you start really young? How did it go for you?
So I was quite normal. I started my first race when I was 6, but normally riders that get to my level have a father that did motocross or an uncle or whatever. But my dad never did motocross. He just rode a bike on the road, if you wish, a bit of a hooligan. But yeah, he just bought me a quad. We had quite a big garden, so I just rode that round till it ran out of fuel. Then he got me a bike when I was a little bit bigger and did the same thing. So entered the local race. I'm from North Wales, so my local clubs were the Cheshires and Red Dragons. Yeah. Did a few of them, started doing well, and then did the British Championship on a 50, and it started from there. So yeah, a bit of a different path than people who have had fathers that have rode. But I guess when you just enjoy doing something and you end up being quite good at it, then you can get where you get. So
this is it. Roger, you still there? You shuffling papers around?
No, I'm still there. So when did you? Okay, you started doing the youth stuff. When did you start getting serious and going to training schools and people and getting some help? How that developed?
Yeah, so I've been with Rich, RMJ Academy, since I was, I can't remember when I had my first training day with them, but ever since I was little, I've had a coach. But my school was completely fine. I always went to school. I did all my school. I took my contract in. I could have whatever time off I wanted, but mum and dad were a bit strict. They wanted me to go to school, so I had the odd Wednesday off, if that, Friday to go to the races. So I did all the school, and my first year British Championship, I was still in school. So, I did my first year professional whilst doing school in the week, which is quite interesting. But
did you find that quite difficult, or to balance it out?
Yeah, it is. But when I was 14 at the start of it, I think when I first went on to 250, maybe just 15 into my first British Championship. And but when you're that age, I just loved riding. So obviously my physical was probably a little bit down. I was young, and it was my first year in the British. So I used to turn up at the weekend, try my hardest, and see where we ended up. And actually I had quite a successful year. That was with PAR Honda, and good bike, good team, and started me off on my professional career.
So if you were to give some advice to a youngster starting to sort of do some of the bigger races now, you'd advise to get a coach because clearly it made a big difference to you. And we've had this conversation before. Sometimes you can get hooked up with making the bike go faster and stuff like that. But a coach worked for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at any top class sports or most top class sports people, there's always a coach. Like in football or cricket or whatever, there's always a coach. And I think if you try and do it on yourself, it's you can't really see what you look like, or the program's not there. You got to think about it all yourself. As if you have a coach, it just makes life so much easier. And especially now, how the sport's developed so much. Like if you look at riders like Prado who have come up, and the techniques change so much compared to when, for example, I'll give an example. Brad Anderson. If you look at the complete opposite riding styles, I think the sport's developed that much, and the bikes have developed that. I think if you start from a young age and get them techniques down, and I think that would be a big advantage when you
concentrate on the basics, learn the basics first.
Yeah, but I'd also say when you're younger, I get asked that question, what you asked me at the start, quite a lot. What advice would I give? It would just be to have fun, honestly, because I see a lot of dads putting so much pressure on their child when they're 6, 7 years old. Because I'm around that coaching environment with RMJ Academy. They also train little riders, so if I'm there sometimes riding, I see it. And that some of the kids get hammered, and I just think when you get older, they're just not going to want to do it. Just enjoy it while you're young. Like the physical side of it isn't really that important, as long as you just ride to have fun, and you get a coach and you enjoy getting coached. I'd say you just leave it at that while you're young. No need to put so much pressure on your child, and then the fun gets taken out of it. Like I also seen it when I was growing up a little bit. Roger, you'll remember Scott Elderfield.
I know Scott very, very well. Yeah.
I kind of think that was a bit of an example of that. So
he keeps getting brought up a lot in this podcast. Like 3 out of 4 episodes, his name has been brought up. Yeah.
If you put motocross wheels on a dustbin, Scott would ride it. He could ride anything, that boy. But
Scott's a few years
what he
older
wanted
than
to
me.
do. That's just what he just wanted to ride a bike. His dad would just say, here's a bike, and he'd drag something out of the shop and he'd ride it. The boy is so natural. He'd ride anything. But when you get to a certain level, as I was just going to come on now, you said about enjoying yourself when you're a kid coming up through. When you suddenly go in the adult ranks, then it gets serious. And a lot of riders can't cope with that. They love turning up, racing, probably winning the local championships or whatever. Suddenly you get to a British Championship round and you're struggling to qualify or finishing 25th.
Yeah, of course. How do
you cope with that?
Yeah, when you're a child, you don't think about any of that. You don't think about money. You don't think about pressure. You get on your bike and you just ride it. But then, of course, when you leave school and some people still need to work. But in my case, it becomes straight away my job. Then all of a sudden the pressure and the money and the team that have hired you to do a job, that all comes involved, and you start thinking a lot more because you're an adult, and the pressures get a lot more. So sometimes, even now, it feels like a job, but then actually when you sit down and think about it, you think, well, this is actually a pretty cool job. So sometimes you need to give yourself a bit of a check and say, yeah, actually, this is what I love to do. This is what I'm doing my dream job as a job. But some days it can be very high pressure, not very fun. When you turn up at Lommel or something and there's ruts from one corner to the next corner and it's -5 and it's completely pouring down and you've got to go and do your motos. Believe me, that's not very fun. But like I said, for me, it beats sitting in an office. So
to be honest, that's why I always have respect, because the top level guys, everyone sees them getting out the big motorhome and you have, all the kit and the bikes and everything that goes with it. Yeah. But in January, when it's rain and you've got to get up in the morning and do your motos and go running or whatever, no matter how much money you've got, you've still got to do that. Which is why, to be fair, I always have respect for guys like Jake Nichols, Elliot Banks Brown, people like that who've got their family, who've got lots of money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no matter how much money you've got, you're the one who's got to pound out the laps. You're the one who's got to go running.
Yeah, of course. And motocross is skill based as well. You can't just buy your way to being good in motocross. You can pay to be on a good team, but that doesn't cut it in motocross. It's not like a sport like Formula One where if you're in the best car, you're going to win. It doesn't work like that in motocross. You still need to put the work in. Still need to be really extremely fit, and it's not all about the bike. So that's kind of what's good about motocross, because it's so difficult. That's what makes it so interesting to me. There's so many different variables. That's why I think it's the most difficult sport in the world. There's so many different variables, and it's so difficult that it's like almost a proud moment, especially in the MXGP class now with how stacked it is. It's a bit like a proud moment to be involved in something so difficult that's so competitive, and that's what gets me training every day and making sure I need to be better than the day before.
So it's that, but you must have a belief in yourself and your own ability to actually motivate yourself to go through all that as well. You must have that self-belief.
Yeah, of course, you need to believe in yourself. Otherwise, if you don't believe in yourself, you might as well not do the training. You might as well not go racing. I think every GP rider believes in themselves to some extent, and like I said, I think that's critical to be able to be good at motocross.
So you're in the adults. Done the British Championship, ex-British champion. How are your thoughts on the British Series, and any thoughts to coming back to that in the future?
2016 British champion. That was one of my life goals, if you wish, to win a British Championship, and that was a bit harder than I would have liked. I don't know if you remember that year, Roger, or
Yeah. Go on, carry on.
So I ended up breaking my arm in Qatar at the first round of the World Championship.
And that was, you did that in qualifying as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so it was my first year doing full GPs. Just finished third in the European Championship the year before with Steve Turner Racing.
Didn't you have your family out there as well, come out to see you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. there was. It was on that horrible, it was really a single tabletop, but people were jumping from the single down the tabletop. But if you come up short, you was landing on the takeoff of a jump. So if you come up short, it was like a brick wall. And Ferrandis was the only person to jump it from the inside. And I'd messed this corner up twice, and being my first year in the MX2, I was all excited, free practice, time practice, wanting to do a good lap time. I made a mistake again, third lap in a row in the corner before, and it sent me to the inside. So I just went for it from the inside, but there was a few braking bumps on the takeoff, or acceleration bumps. I just didn't get the drive. Nose dived into the thing, but didn't crash. I carried on because I wanted to finish the lap, because I was 2 corners away from the finish. Went over the next jump, and I took my left arm off because it was just seized up, couldn't move it, and I landed, went straight into the pits and pulled up to Dad and Rich, and he was like, right, don't look at your wrist. Obviously the first thing I did, look at my wrist.
Oh no.
It was like an S shape. That was it. So yeah, the recovery wasn't too bad from that, actually. I had an absolute horrendous ordeal in the Qatar hospital. We won't go into that because that's pretty graphic. And it involved 4 people pulling my arm back together with no painkillers.
Oh, nice.
Then they put me to sleep and did it because they physically couldn't pull it apart. Got that all sorted, had 11 screws and a plate put in there, and 4 weeks later, missed the first round at Ling, but luckily for me, a few of the top riders Stephen Clark, he had a DNF in one race, I think, because of a bike problem. So yeah, I didn't lose that many points, but I was still away behind. Second round was my first race back at Canada Rights. Ended up going 7-9 or something, and Clarkey went 1-1. so I'm even further behind. And then, yeah, pretty much won almost every racing round from that point. But it was made even more difficult by I crashed in Lommel GP, went over the bars, and the bike burnt me. Don't know if you remember that, Roger.
I do. Because I was going to talk to you about that as well. But carry on that story first.
Yeah, so it was you could crash 1,000 times and it not happen like this. I don't know what happened. I just went over the berm and went over the bars, and the bike landed on top of me. But this is probably the scariest thing that's happened actually to me. But I was just stuck under the bike, and the back tailpipe, like the bike stalled, but my shirt and my neck brace and helmet was all stuck in the back wheel, and my arm was through like the back of the shock and the tailpipe, and it was just burning my right bicep. So I could feel it, obviously, and after about 30 seconds, I couldn't feel it, and I just could not get out. So I was screaming to the people. Luckily, there were some British fans. I know who one is. They ripped the fence up and they crawled under. But I was probably under there for about a minute, say, or maybe just over a minute. But it just felt like forever. But it was burning my arm, and I knew the feeling went from my arm, so I knew. That's not good, and I don't want it to burn my muscle. So I kept grabbing sand from the floor, and I was with my left hand pushing the exhaust pipe that's on rubbers. They're on rubbers so they can move a little bit. So I would push the exhaust pipe to take it off my arm, but obviously it was burning my hand, so I would hold that until I could physically take the pain in my left hand and then let it go and it burned my arm again. So I just kept doing that until I got out of the bike, got back on, went straight to the medical centre, and I didn't realise how bad it was. I just looked at my arm and seen a burn. Got to the medical centre, ended up getting rushed to Antwerp, which is quite far away from Lommel, like an hour and a half or something. I went straight into, they treated me there. Drove all the way home to Liverpool because there's a burns hospital in Liverpool, not far from my house. Went straight into theatre there and was in hospital like 2 weeks. And if you're afraid of needles like me, having a burn in hospital is not ideal when you don't like needles, because I think I was having like 7 or 8 needles a day, big ones as well, like blood clot ones, stop your infection. And then after that, I had to go every single day to get it rewrapped, rebandaged. But while I was in the hospital, they normally take the graft from your backside. But I said, I want to ride. Got a chance to win the British Championship. Can you not take it from somewhere else? So they took it from my quad instead. Lucky I said that, because 2 weeks straight away after when I did it in Lommel, I rode like the mummy at Preston Docks and ended up going 1-1. So took the red plate, and that gave me the 1 point lead going into the last round at Fox Hills, where I was able to win the British Championship. So bit of a mad year, but we got it done, and I guess that's what made it even more special than if I just won it easy,
So you've got a high pain threshold, obviously.
I would say so. Yeah, I don't like blood or needles, but if you was there, I guess you wouldn't know. I'm quite good at hiding it, but really don't like them too. But pain I can deal with, but blood and needles, no thanks.
Okay, so moving on again, the European EMX 250 series.
Yeah.
Twice third in that, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. 14 and 15.
Yep. But then when you probably were in with a shot of winning it, you started the season really well and probably were the main contender for it. You got moved up early into MX2.
So
how do you feel about that? Do you think that was, in hindsight, was that a mistake to move up or not?
No, because I did my first Grand Prix in Argentina. Luckily, one of my favourite tracks. I think Jake or Frossard or somebody was injured, so at the time they were riding 350s, so I could just take an engine to Argentina and it was the same frame and stuff, and then I could ride MX2. which I ended up doing. I hole shot 2 at the qualifying race and almost the first moto, took the lead in the first moto for about 2 corners in my first Grand Prix and ended up finishing 8th. So, couldn't be happy with how that went. But like you said, 14 was my first year in the Europeans. Second full year in the Europeans. And I ended up finishing 3rd, which was fine. So 15, I really wanted to go for the championship, which, to be honest, I feel like some mistakes on my behalf. I should have won the championship, but you learn, and it's if, buts, and maybes, and 3rd is what I finished. So I had the red plate a good few rounds in that championship, and it was pretty devastated not to win it. And then, like you said, I ended up going into MX2 in 2016. So, yeah.
Do you think that the European 250s, that I know Ustream, or in front as they are now, take some stick about the 23 age group in MX2 and that sort of thing, but the European 250s, that is a competitive class, and it's a good grounding for moving up to MX2, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. You need something like the Europeans to make that talent progress. It's good. All the teams are there; they can see the riders. And a lot of the teams have riders a lot of the GP teams have riders in the EMX 250 anyway, or 125. So I think that's a really good system of stepping people up. Much better than it used to be. Like just before I started doing Europeans, so maybe 4 or 5 years before that, it didn't follow the World Championship, and I think now that it follows it, that's a much better system. And I think that's why we've got such good depth now in all the classes.
What's your thoughts on the 23 age rule?
I disagree with it. I don't think it should be there. I just think it filters people into MXGP too fast. Like when you look already at the MXGP class now, and the riders that maybe didn't get a ride this year as well, and then plus next year you've got Olsen and Ben to go up into the class. It just, for me, I think there should either be no age rule in MX2, or at least make it higher. Like they should have maybe an age rule in the age rule in EMX 250, like to 21 or 23 or something, and then maybe in MX2 till 25, and then at least if you have a good MX2 career, you can spend half your career in MX2 and half your career in MXGP. As at the moment, it's a little bit in MX2 and 10 years in MXGP if you're a good rider. So I just think the balance would be better if they either scrapped the age rule or made it higher.
And some riders are better on a 250 than a 450.
Yeah, like I'm sure if you give Tommy the option to stay in MX2, maybe he would have stayed in MX2. But we don't make the rules, so we can only abide by them. But that's one rule I disagree with, and I think if you ask the majority of riders, I think they'd also disagree with it.
And as you alluded, that must make things very, very tough when you move up, because the rides are getting fewer and fewer.
Yeah, I'm sure, like I said, Ben and Olsen have got to move up into MXGP, but there's just so many good riders now in MXGP. There's just not enough spaces. And I know if you're good enough, you're going to get a space. I know that, but sometimes the luck isn't there to people are in contracts and there's not enough factory teams. And you alluded to it earlier though. If you're one of the top riders, you'll get a ride, but you've also up against some of the riders who have got some backers. Yeah,
so
like people
your ability to get
well.
you in the team. Yeah,
but like sometimes you can move up and everybody's out of contract and it works in your favour, because you can. If everybody's out of contract, then it's contract year, and you're a really good MX2 rider coming up, you might be able to get that opportunity. But if it's your time to move up and everybody's still in contract, there is no option for you to go anywhere. So how do you then, without paying, get on a team or a bike that's good enough where you can then prove yourself? And then you can't drop back to MX2 because of the age rule, and sometimes a bit of luck, and your career's over almost if you don't get that bit of luck. Which is
frustrating for you though when you look around and you see some of the riders who have bought their way into teams. Is that frustrating for you?
I mean, not if they're a good rider. I understand it. It is motorsport. It happens. It happens in all the motorsports. So, I don't disagree with it, but it just is what it is, isn't it? I'm just glad there's not loads and loads of people doing that. Luckily enough, it's only a small minority at the minute, but it is what it is, and we just have to deal with it. So
tell us what was it like then? Done the Europeans, and as you said, up to the GPs. How was the first GP? Tell us what that experience was like, the first Grand Prix.
My first ever Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So like I said, Argentina, the furthest one away. We got on the plane with an engine, or a couple of engines, with Steve. I flew with him.
What, the plane had an engine, or you had an engine?
Yeah, no, yeah. Steve brought the engines, luckily enough, because when we got to Argentina, I think that cost Steve quite a lot of money to get them engines into Argentina. So at one point in the airport, thought wasn't going to be able to ride. I can't remember how practice and stuff went, but when it's your first Grand Prix and you're that young, there's just no pressure or anything. So it's so fun to you think, yeah, this is what I've dreamed of as a kid, you know. I'm at the highest level, and sometimes you don't think you're going to get to that level, and to just ride with no pressure is unbelievable. And like I said, one of my favourite tracks, whole shot the qualifying race. Almost whole shot the first moto, passed for the lead in the second corner, passed Sewer for the lead, led for like 2 corners. I ended up finishing 8th overall. So, yeah, as far as my first Grand Prix went, I couldn't have asked for it to be any better.
So, okay, how did the season progress after that? You started off on a high. How did it go after that?
So yeah, then there's some mistakes, and then Jake come back from injury. Or Frossard come back from injury, and I did some wildcard Grand Prix that year, but I did go back to the European class as well. That was because that was 2015 when I did my first Grand Prix. So my main goal that year was to win the European Championship, and like I said, I finished 3rd. But the main thing for that was to get experience, and the main goal was to win the European Championship and then go into MX2 in 2016. But I finished 3rd and ended up going to MX2 in 2016 anyway.
Okay, so then you carried on, and your last year in MX2, 2019, finished 6th.
Yeah, 6th.
Kawasaki. And looking through the scores, you had a fantastically consistent year. There was only one race where you didn't score.
Yeah, I know, and it was Imola, and I'm gutted about it because I was the only person at that point to have scored points in every moto, and I wanted to do the whole year without missing a race, you know. And Imola, I absolutely can't stand that place. I just think it's the worst track on the calendar, dangerous, and yeah, I ended up having a big crash and hitting my head pretty hard, so ended up not scoring any points in one race there, which was disappointing. But like you said, I finished 6th in the world. The F&H bike was really good last year. Managed to get good starts. Highest position of 2nd. I missed out on getting my podium that I wanted, but I feel like a bit of luck on my side and I would have got it, but I missed it. I was close to it a couple of times, but again, it is what it is.
2nd at Lockett and the 3rd in Belgium and Sweden. Yeah,
so Czech Republic's one of my favourite GPs, if not my favourite GP. And I think I finished 5th or something in the first race. And then 2nd in the second race, so I just missed the podium there. And then we have Lommel, another one of my favourite Grand Prix I always do well at. 3rd in the first race. And in the second race, I crashed with my teammate again for the second time. And I just missed the podium there again. I think we was at 1 point different or joint on points. Ben just got on the podium. Sweden, another type of ground that's like Czech Republic that I like. I just missed the podium there as well. I actually wanted to go for the lead on Vial. I was catching him and I just washed the front in one of the corners, and it cost me the podium again. But you learn, and gutted that I didn't get on the podium, but the nations made up for that.
You just hinted about your teammate. Tell us, you had a couple of incidents with your teammate during the course of the year.
I somehow knew this would come up in this podcast somewhere. Of course, everybody knows what happened in Germany. I think the whole world's seen it. We was the most famous people in motocross for that week. Out of nowhere, just got taken out. So there was some celebration going on to the fans after the finish. So I thought I'll go and see what that was all about. Everyone's seen what happened. It got dealt with afterwards. We're fine now. We speak. When that happened in Lommel, I was a bit annoyed again, but that wasn't his fault really. He just crashed the other side of the jump. I didn't see it and I come over. So nothing I could have done about it.
Did that motivate you though to what was it like in the team while this was going on?
On the moment, it wasn't very good because, as you can imagine, it's just not what you want in that environment. We actually stayed together in the same house as well in Holland. So, he moved out of there and, he didn't come training for a couple of weeks. He got a big fine. And, I think he learnt from it and, we speak now.
You came out of it with credibility, I have to say.
Yeah, well, everybody always says like, you should have smacked him or whatever. But in that situation, you need to be professional because, like, if someone tackles Ronaldo in football really hard, he don't get up and start punching the other player. It just doesn't happen like that. But anyway, what was we going to do on the middle of that tabletop? Everybody videoing it with helmet, goggles, boots. What was we going to do? There's nothing. We would have just been rolling around on the floor and looked even more stupid. So I said what I needed to say, and I said, we can go and sort it out of the truck. And
plus he's half your size as well, so there's only ever going to be one winner there, aren't there?
Yeah.
He's only a little lad, isn't he?
Yeah. But obviously nothing happened afterwards and it got sorted and we moved on.
That's it. So one thing I want to pick your brains about, we've touched on it a couple of times, but the nation. Last year, the nations was, what would you say, Roger? A complete washout?
No. Do you know what? I wouldn't. Saturday was okay. Sunday, the weather was horrible. And I have to say, credit to the fans sat in those grandstands.
Yeah, big respect for that.
Rain all day long. Fair play to them. But the track was, Adam, you know, the track was rideable. And how many other tracks can you think of that would have taken that amount of water?
If we were at most tracks in the world, we wouldn't have been able to race. I'm pretty sure. We just had so much rain, just non-stop. But luckily, we was in a sand track. But that one at Assens, the sand's like, it's weird. It's like Play-Doh. If it just absorbs the water, and I think, like you said, we could get racing, and it was flipping hard work on a 250. But unbelievable weekend, and like you said, the fans were incredible, and that's my greatest motocross achievement, most proudest moment to date. So, unbelievable experience.
Tell us how you felt when you got the call.
So obviously there was Ben got chose first, which was fair enough. There was a lot of discussion going on with Mark at the time, and we're lucky in Britain. You know, we have a good selection of riders we can choose from, especially that have decent sand riders. Like we even got the enduro rider in, and ended up getting on the podium. And Nathan's an unbelievable sand rider, but yeah, I got the call saying Ben was in, which was fine. I respected that decision, and Mark kept me involved the whole way. And yeah, unfortunately in Imola, Ben re-broke his hand, so that gave me the position. But to be honest, there was almost the whole team almost got wiped out in Imola. Sean had a big crash, I had a big crash, Ben broke his hand. So yeah, it was almost a disaster after Imola. But I got the call to say I was in the team, and it was just like at the time it wasn't, oh, this is unbelievable. It was like, right, that's my full focus, and there comes so much pressure with the nations. You know, it's not like a normal GP race where if you do bad, it's just you and the team to blame. You know, here in the nations, you've got the whole of the UK behind you, and your two teammates that you'd also let down if you did bad. So there becomes a lot of pressure with the nations, but I perform my best when I'm under pressure. And like I said, I wish I could go back and do that weekend again. It was unbelievable.
How did you feel on the Friday when we did the team presentation and you're up there on the truck, Team UK, and all the British fans there? Because half of Britain was there. There was a lot of British fans there. How did you feel with that?
Yeah, like it was just it was just in Holland, so there was a lot of British fans there. And honestly, from the moment I was on my way to the track to the moment I left on Sunday night, was just, I had a smile from ear to ear, and it was just, like I said, it was unbelievable, and something I've never done before, and it's just an unreal experience to be there in front of all the British fans and to go through the parade and ride with riders that, like, from the USA and people you don't normally get to ride against, you know. And we all had a house together. Me, Nathan, Sean was with his wife and child. Obviously, we had a nice house. And yeah, we just went about it, and we gave our all, and the conditions played into our hands a bit. Nathan being a good sand rider, Sean obviously being an incredible sand rider. Sand's my strong point. We're all from the UK, and it was wet and muddy, so yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better weekend. It was unbelievable.
So it was. You said it was hard work though on a 250. It was literally a grind, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very difficult. Like, we didn't have the best gate positions after Saturday, and first moto was me and Nathan, and obviously Nathan's bike broke. I had a big crash and got stuck under the bike again. That seems to be a thing with me. I don't know why. So after the first moto, me and Nathan thought we'd ruined it. You know, and I was so gutted after the first moto. It was like, surely not again, after missing the podium all year in MX2. And then I was thinking, surely we can't end on a bad note here. So I was out again, second moto, and Sean ended up getting third or fourth, I think. And I ended up getting ninth or 10th or something. I can't remember exactly, somewhere around the positions. So I knew that would have brought us back in it, because France had a bad race. Every country had a bad race that they needed to throw away. And going into the last race, obviously I'm not racing, I'm just in my normal clothes. I just go to watch Nathan and Sean, see where we end up. Not even thinking about the podium. Didn't have anything with me, just in my normal clothes, just in the skybox, watching the race. And like watching it on the TV, and it comes up with second, and I'm like, what? Like, then I was never been more nervous watching a race in my life. In the skybox with like just hundreds of British fans, and I see France catching us, Belgium overtook us, and then I knew it was close between us and France, and I could see Tixier got a really bad start, and I knew he was coming through the field. But then I also seen Paulan's bike start smoking, which he says they ran out of fuel, but I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, I'm watching the race. France overtake on the scoreboard on the TV. It didn't come up, but I seen Tixier make the pass that I knew with the points would overtake us. So I'm like, no, not fourth again, surely. Can't be fourth again. And then it panned to Paulan pushing his bike back, and the whole VIP skybox just jumped on me, and it was, I ran straight.
Yeah, I made a bit of a fool of myself there, because when I saw that Paul Ann was pushing, I just started screaming, "Paul Ann's out! Paul Ann's out!"
I remember because I've watched it on the TV afterwards, and I remember hearing that, and I was like, I was just looking at the screen, like I know we're on the podium, but I wanted to just see the official confirmation on the screen, and the race finished. Nathan crossed the line, Sean crossed the line. I ran to the podium, and yeah, you should have seen it behind the podium. We was all like little babies. Sean was crying his eyes out. We was all just made up because all Sean kept saying was, "Make sure you remember this moment. I've been trying for I can't remember how many years." He said he's been trying with the nations, and he's never got on the podium. So he was going like, "You two, your first time you're on the podium." That's all he kept saying. So I think Sean was over the moon, and just an unreal experience.
How was Mark Chamberlain as a manager?
Yeah, really good. I can't fault him. Good. The tactics was good. He keeps everybody in the loop. We made a good game plan. I can't thank him enough for the opportunity, and everything was organised. We had a really nice house. We had good food. We did question and answers with the VIP British people the night before. I have no complaints. Good team manager.
So that's obviously the plan is to get back on the team again in the future. Yeah,
sure. That after that experience, that's my goal for this year. I don't know how that's gonna pan out this year with everything that's going on, but I'm trying my hardest to get back on the team for this year. And luckily, on a 450, there's an extra space available. As on an MX2 bike, you're just kind of going for one space, but there's two on a 450. So, I'm working hard to get some good results, and hopefully I can be on the team again.
Well, that would be special to be. As we speak, the Nations is due to be at Matterley Basin, as you know. 2 questions: performing in front of your home crowd, and what do you think of Matterley as a track?
So home GP, one of my favourite Grand Prix. When I was leading the Europeans and stuff, and I won there as a European rider, when you go around the track, you can hear the fans, and it's another unbelievable experience, and definitely helps you in that situation as a racer. So to do the nations there would be unbelievable, and I just hope we're allowed to have a lot of spectators there if it happens, and so we can have that atmosphere, and I'm sure it'll be a great weekend. Like it always is at Matterley. And Matterley as a track. For racing, I would love to go there and practice there. It would be like my favourite track to go and practice on. Racing's kind of difficult. It is a good racetrack, but I prefer more like the likes of Czech Republic, Lommel, something a bit different. I'm not really a massive fan of like loads of grip, deep ruts. Like perfect ruts, if you wish. If they're deep and technical, I don't mind, but ones that are like really grippy and perfect flowing, it's not my favorite type of ground. So, but like I said, to go there practice, unbelievable. One of my favorite tracks, and it is one of my favorite Grand Prix because it's my home Grand Prix.
We were talking before the show though. You'd like to see a GP at Hawkstone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be unbelievable. Local race to me. Raced that since I was a kid. Ex-GP track, many great memories of GPs there in the past. I think, like I mentioned before, I think it'd be potentially the busiest GP that we've ever had in the UK. I think it'd bring the audience of people more up north, the Twin Shock audience, the more old school fans of motocross audience, the people who maybe go to Farley, and also the normal fans who go to Matterley. So hopefully in the future they could maybe sort something out there, but I don't know whether it's possible or not. A lot goes on behind the scenes that people don't realise, and the stuff that they need to take the Grand Prix round all over the world now is a lot. So, but like I said, I'd love to see a GP there, and that'd be unbelievable.
Well, never say never.
Yeah, never say never, hopefully.
It'd be nice.
Even if I'm retired, I reckon I'll get a re-entry if it happens.
You do realise that sometime in the future you're going to have to ride at Farley Castle with the vets as well.
Yeah, I get asked every year now. Like a couple of my sponsors have 500 and stuff, but yeah, that's another race I want to do in the future. Of course, that looks unbelievable. I've never actually been there. I've raced Farley in the British Championship, one round we had there one year, but to see that Farley weekend, I always see photos and videos, and people always tell me that's the best motocross weekend that they have. And I'm like, surely better than Matterley when the caravans are on fire and everything like that. But I guess
it's the most fun. It is the most fun by a country mile.
Maybe that's just an older people's thing, Roger.
Oi.
Maybe the younger people just like setting caravans and fireworks and pit bikes through fire and that at Matterley, and Farley's more of the sit around the campfire with
okay, right. As long as we know where we stand.
With a JD and Coke or something.
Right. Okay, right. Okay, as long as we know where we stand.
No, but I definitely want to go to Farley. It does look really good, to be fair, and I only hear good stories about it. So,
yeah. Hey, what goes around comes around. Just remember that. I will get a chance. Have you ever ridden a 500 two-stroke?
I've rode a Neil Prince's factory 500, I think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
When I was on Par Honda, we did go to a track, and he had a couple of old bikes there, and I'm not an expert on old bikes. I'm a bit new school for that, but I did ride one of his. I'm sure it was a 500. But yeah, I was 15 at the time, thinking, how do you even ride these things fast? Because it would be quite an experience to try and ride one of them around Matterley, because on jumps, I just don't know. It's so difficult to jump one of them things because you give it a bit of power and it wants to fly you off the back, and you shut off and it's just nosedives. So it's just, I don't know how they used to do it when you watch videos in the past, but that was a good experience that I'll always remember, riding one of them. I would like to. One of my personal sponsors has got a KX 500. That I don't know what year. Never even started up. That every time I go there, I'm just looking at it and think, I'd love to have a go on that, But yeah, I'm sure it's not been started up, and you wouldn't appreciate me having that thing on the limiter.
There's one on the bucket list for you then. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, definitely. That's one race I definitely want to do in the future.
So,
sorry, carry
on. Jumping back a little bit to GPs and bits and bobs. Obviously, this year has been mental with what's going on in the world. But the new GP calendar, do you think it's going to be difficult for teams and stuff, logistics-wise, to get in there?
I think the calendar's quite good, actually, the new one.
Yeah.
I think the way that they've done it with 3 rounds in Latvia, 3 rounds in Lommel, a lot of rounds in Italy, I think that makes it easy for the teams. I don't really agree with the flyaway ones still. I don't know if they'll happen or not. Mm-hmm. But I just think for this year, it's obviously cost the teams a lot of money. Sponsors, bikes haven't been sold. Sponsors who sponsor the team's businesses haven't done as good as they usually do. So I think just like a European-based championship, like most of the rounds are, would be better. And that's kind of what they've done. So I'm just interested to see how it works when Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday. I think at Lommel that's going to be a pretty heavy week and a half. Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday at Lommel. So hopefully they grade it in between.
And also as well, especially if they are limiting spectators and that sort of thing, do you think that's going to make a big difference to sort of it's going to make a difference to the atmosphere there, but is it in general? Because obviously, like you mentioned about the nations and other GPs, you kind of almost buzz off the crowd a little bit.
Yeah, and I think most GPs, like for example, Steve Dixon, who runs Matterley, he has to rely on a lot of the fans for the income. Yeah. As the British government, as we know, doesn't really help motocross in the UK, so unlike countries like Indonesia and Latvia, I guess, I'm not sure on the situation or whatever, but a lot of the governments from them countries help to have the GP there. As in the UK, we don't have that, so we need to rely on the fans and the spectators. That's why it's a little bit annoying when people complain about the price, because we kind of. Do you want a British Grand Prix or do you not want a British Grand Prix? So
This is it.
you either support it or you don't complain about it. Just turn up there. It's
Yeah. And it costs a lot to even put these events on in the first place. So when people obviously are saying about a 25 quid, 30 quid ticket, and don't see, obviously there's got to be trade stands there's got to be transport for getting all the rigs there and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so, especially in the UK as well. Like, I bet Steve has to deal with so much stuff with health and safety and mud on the road and access and fencing and security. And
I was just going to say, I was in Steve's office once and he showed me a file which was just on dealing with the local police on the roads and the traffic systems. And that file
I can imagine.
About 3 inches thick. And that's just on the roads. So people don't. This country is the worst for regulations because we do everything by the book. As you know, Adam, traveling the world, not every GP does that.
No, of course. Like a lot of countries are a lot more lenient.
Yeah, we have to. And Steve has to jump through numerous hoops just to get the event put on. And there is a cost to all of that. And unfortunately, that is reflected in the ticket price. But as you said, Adam, what do you want? If you want a GP, that's why.
If there's like at the start of the year when there was no Grand Prix, or when the first original calendar come out, everybody's complaining, no Grand Prix. That's terrible. But then also you'll see the same people complaining when the ticket prices come out, saying the tickets are too expensive, so they're not going to go. So you can't win sometimes, but like you said, I think you don't realise how much goes in, especially in the UK, to run an event like that because of the health and safety and the police and the security, and I bet the list just goes on and on and on. I'm sure there's loads of stuff that we don't even think about either. That in a lot of other countries which get help from the government because they like to have a World Championship motocross race there, so the government fund it, like Indonesia or they can get away with a lot more. But in the UK, where the government doesn't fund it, unfortunately, it has to get on the ticket prices and raising the money for the event.
And to be fair, you've got to have some respect for David Luongo and the in-front team this year to put a calendar together at all, because with the flight restrictions and countries and that sort of thing, because they have an obligation to their sponsors and also to the TV companies to put these races on, because spectators at the circuit is one thing, but TV is king. TV is where the big audiences are, and you've got to put something on for the TV schedules. So to put an actual schedule of GPs together at all under these circumstances must have been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, you can imagine organising one Grand Prix. Imagine trying to organise the whole calendar. Oh, I don't envy that job, but yeah, got to respect them for putting the calendar together. Hopefully it all goes to plan. We haven't got there yet, so I hear there's some things about quarantine and that we need to abide by, but hopefully it all goes smooth and hopefully we can get racing again, so people at home can watch the racing and sponsors can get what they've paid for, and just return back to normal. I just want to start going back to normal. I'm over the situation that we're in now. I'm sure a lot of people are as well. And
how did you cope with quarantine? What have you been doing?
So when it first happened, I was a bit like, I didn't know what to think about it. Then obviously it got a lot more serious, and I had 7 weeks off the bike, probably the longest I've ever had off a bike. Just didn't ride. Just worked on my physical training, still training. Just got fitter than I've ever been off the bike, and since we've been allowed to ride again, I've been riding. So yeah, we're here now. I feel good. I feel good on the bike.
Because obviously, I mean, on the face of it, a 450 probably suits you better because you're a big lad. So has this actually played as an advantage to you, giving you more bike time before you were back racing?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, 450. I've always looked forward to going on 450 because, like you said, I'm a bigger guy. Like last year, I was lining on the start line, next to Prado. He's 20 kilos lighter than me on a faster bike. So off the metal start gate, which I don't particularly agree with either, it's almost impossible to get a good start against him if he's next to you. It's just not going to happen. And as like when you used to prep your gate a little bit, I used to be able to find advantages, as in different techniques on different circuits, gate prep. Like I've got a bit of OCD, so my gate prep was always 100% different gate prep for different types of ground. As now everybody has the same, so almost qualifying on Saturday is almost not as important now either. But again, in Indonesia when it's 40 degrees, we don't have to stand there prepping a gate, so there is advantages and disadvantages. But yeah, like you said, 450 suits me better. The thing is, I used to ride a 250 like you would ride a 450, but to get that extra half a second to a second in MX2 that I needed to change my style and go a bit more aggressive, especially on a Kawasaki and a 250, a powerful one. You need to rev it, which is something I've never really done. So the last 2 years in MX2, I've had to change my style. And when I got on a 450 to start with, I was riding it a bit like a 250, and it just does not work like that at all. It doesn't. You can't ride a 450 like a 250. So I've almost had to revert back to how I used to ride, and that's what I've been working on. And you definitely have to respect the 450 a lot more than the 250 because it can go wrong very fast.
Have you changed your training regime to go on the 450?
Like physically?
Yeah.
Not to start with, but over lockdown I did. I've always been quite muscly. And with that, obviously becomes weight and not as flexible. So in lockdown, I left the weights and everything alone. And I just did cardio and sprints and flexibility stuff. So I've actually lost quite a bit of weight, which has ended up being an advantage for me, as well as keeping my strength. So we'll see. I've been training hard. I've got a bit of testing to do before we go back racing, but we'll see in Latvia. Again, that'll only be my third Grand Prix on a 450. So yeah, we'll see.
You said, so just a quick one. You said you were a bit OCD on your start line preparation. Have you got any other rituals you go through? Are you that sort of rider where you have sort of your lucky pants and that sort of stuff?
No, complete opposite. I don't have anything like that. I don't believe in walking under ladders or walking over free grids or saluting a magpie or anything like that. I don't.
I see. I do all that.
I don't do any. I don't do any of that. I just yeah. I'm just OCD with like making sure everything's neat, and if I do something, I do it 100%. So if that's gate prep, then I'll make sure I do it 100%. If that's riding, I'll do it 100%. So then in my head, I know I've done it good, and if it doesn't work out, I know I've tried my hardest. So, but as far as rituals, knee braces on the left first or anything like that, I don't do anything. I just actually maybe there's one thing, which is I always check the fuel caps tight. That's it. But that's just because once I was riding around Lommel and the fuel cap come off, and you can imagine where the fuel went, and it wasn't very a pleasant experience. But so I just check the fuel caps tight every time I get on the bike. But that's just a habit.
No, I could not get on the bike if I haven't done everything left to right. I am one of those people. It's terrible.
I think there's more people who do that than don't, but yeah. I've just never done it. I've never done any of that stuff. Like cross my fingers or anything. Or
Oh
I've
God,
just never
no!
believed.
I'm the worst. I do all of that and more.
End up crashing your mountain bike, don't you, Roger?
If you go shopping in town, then Roger, it's like you're dancing or something when you're walking along.
It's Oh yeah, I wouldn't go under a ladder. Good God, no! Wouldn't do anything like that. No, but I've it's silly things like when I go to a race, I've got a bag that I carry my documents in, and it's fallen apart. But I've had it my whole career, and I would not throw it away. Things like that. I've got loads of rituals like that. Absolutely ridiculous.
No, I don't have anything like that. I just
that's because you're young and I'm very old, as you just told me. So
do you actually ride, Roger, at all or not?
I've got a road bike. As Sophie knows, I picked up a new one last week. So I've got a road bike. I mountain bike. Every November, I go to Off-Road Orange in Spain with some mates, and we do a couple of days riding up in the mountains.
Yeah, but no motocross.
Used to, years and years ago, did motocross.
You don't fancy having a go now?
The trouble is, I know I'd get hurt. I mean, I fall off a mountain bike.
That is the problem with motocross.
That scares me because I see, especially at races like Farley, you see guys of my age who are horrendously out of shape, tanking around on a bike, and you think you are going to get hurt. And
as well in motocross, it's not even the big crashes that you need to worry about. It's like all of my injuries, I haven't crashed. Apart from the burn when I went over the bars, like I broke my finger, my wrist, my ACL and my knee, and every time I didn't crash. It's just when you don't expect it, you just put your foot down, and then that's it. So from my experience, it's not even, as you can imagine, over my career, I've had some really big crashes, and I've never got injured from them. So it's always the small ones that you don't expect.
Just talking about your age, you've just turned 24. So you're line
23 still.
Oh, well,
24, I'm 24 in September.
September.
Yeah,
Okay.
September 2nd. Like me and Ben are same school year. It's just that my birthday's September and his is February or something, or maybe a bit longer. And he gets an extra year in MX2. So I just missed the extra year in MX2, really. So
you're lining up alongside Tony Cairoli, who's 10 years older than you. And how does that feel? To
be fair, I've never really thought about the age. It's just he's a legend, isn't he? So 9 times world champion. That's what goes through my head. Not that he's 10 years older. I'd rather not think he's 10 years older than me.
But that goes to show if you stay healthy, you've got a long career ahead of you.
Yeah, that reverting back to what I was saying before, that's why with the age rule in MX2, there's not enough years because everybody's getting filtered up too fast. So I've had 4 years in MX2, and if I was to stay in MXGP, I could stay there 10 years plus if I did well and the opportunity and the rides were there. So over the next 10 years, how many people are going to get filtered out of MX2, forced to go into MXGP, and potentially not have a ride in them 10 years?
That's why the EMX 250 and this new EMX Open class is so popular, because there's a lot of riders going back to that, aren't they?
Yeah, but then the only problem with that is there's not really any budget or salary or money to go and ride them classes, because everybody wants someone in MXGP or MX2.
No, there you go. Now you can bust some myths now. The impression a lot of people have got is that if you're riding MXGP, you're earning lots of money. Is that true?
Definitely not. It can be, of course, it can be, and there's you can make really good money, serious good money, like Cairoli, of course, Paul Ann, Jeffrey. But yeah, it's the difference from there to people you see fighting for the points is the price difference is yeah, you'd be surprised. Some people even ride for free, and yeah, obviously, you know how hard motocross is, and it's not something you want to do for free.
That's what I say. That people just get the wrong impression sometimes, that there is all this money floating around, but in reality, it's only the very elite who are doing okay, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there is good money to be made, and the British Championships as well, you can make good money, but it's only a small percentage that get to make the money, you know. And yeah, not just because you're in the MXGP class doesn't mean you're now earning millions. It doesn't work like that. But of course, there is good money to be made if you ride well, if you get on the podium, whatever, if you sign for a good team, if you have a good year. And of course, the people at the top, Cairoli, Hurlins, they are making millions. So there is money to be made. It's just, just because you ride MXGP doesn't mean you're automatically a millionaire.
This is it. I think a lot of people think the same about the British and whatnot as well, don't they? But moving on to the British a little bit, who have you got your money on? Because obviously we've got a few of the lads back in the British this year. Who's going to show through?
In both classes, or?
Yeah, classes.
I think Conrad or Basfassen's a favourite for MX2. You would like to say Conrad is favourite because of he will know the tracks better. And in MX1,
yeah,
I don't know. Jake goes really well, you know, on a domestic level. He's got a really good heart. Tommy's got the speed. Sean's always there, obviously, with consistency. As long as Sean doesn't have inconsistency with a bike problem or something that hindered him last year. I don't know. It's hard to say. And you got Barbashev as well. Then like Elliot, Banks Brown, and the likes of people like that. It's hard to say in MX1, but I think that the top guys will be Jake, Tommy, Sean, Barbashev. I don't know if maybe I've missed somebody else, but I think that you'll see them four battling most of the time for the win.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Jake and people like that suffer because they're not doing GPs now? Do you think their speed suffers because of that? They're not riding at that intensity?
There is that way of looking at it, but then you could also look at it as an advantage. Like, let's not talk about this year, but say another year. We'd be so many races down now all over the world. Like Latvia one weekend, then Germany, and then flying and not being able to ride in the week, as they can test and ride, because they might have 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month in between races. So they've got much more time to be fresh for the British Championship. Like if you ride the World Championship, your main priority is the World Championship. So, for example, if a round is sand and the British Championship's hard pack, but the next round of the World Championship sand, maybe you'll prioritise riding sand over the hard pack. But I mean, you just don't get in the GP season. You just don't get that much time to ride, if I'm honest, because when you're coming back from Indonesia, you completely destroyed yourself in the heat, 40 degrees, riding there 2 weeks. You don't get back till Tuesday or Wednesday, and then you've got to ride the British Championship on Sunday, and you've just rode the hard pack in 40-degree heat in Indonesia. Maybe you've got Ling, Sand, or Desert Martin on Sunday in the British Championship, which is the complete opposite. And maybe you don't ride from Indonesia to then. So there is definitely obviously advantage of intensity and speed of riding GPs, but if you could just focus on the British, then I think that's a bigger advantage than riding GPs.
Just a quick question then. You've mentioned the travelling. There is a lot of travelling involved. In a full season, you've got 20 GPs, a lot of highways. How do you maintain your training regime when you've got that much time travelling?
Well, people always ask, like, what's the hardest part about it? I would say that travelling's one of the hardest parts. People think, you just jump on a plane, you're on the beach, you chill. You go to a party, you do some riding on a Saturday, put a good time in. You go race on Sunday and you fly home, this is social media. You only see the good parts, but when you go from one GP to the next, sometimes you can't even ride in between because it's that. Like I said, if we come back from Indonesia or 1 year to Argentina, it took 36 hours to get there. So you're going all that way back in time difference. You're racing, completely destroying your body. Then you've got to get back on a plane 30 odd hours to fly back. And then you've got to race the next weekend, then a race the next weekend. And this just carries on throughout the year. And yeah, that in my opinion is a little bit why you see so many injuries, because it's not like Formula One or MotoGP where they don't ride in between races. We have to still test and ride and in between. So normally in a season, there's so many races, for 11 months of the year where we're flat out, pre-season, then the whole season. I ride probably once, twice maximum in the week in between Grand Prix, depending on where it is. And that's why the winter is so important, to be honest, because if you get injured in the winter, you just can't catch up. You can't catch up you can't just keep racing every weekend and catch up. It just doesn't work. So winter's extremely important. If you get injured in winter, it's a massive, massive disadvantage. But yeah, like I said, it's impossible to catch up. And
So is it important then to get that base level of fitness before the season starts? Does that carry you through?
Yeah, definitely. If you don't have that base level, and say if you got injured in the winter, but you were ready just before the first Grand Prix, you'd be better missing the first 5-6 Grand Prix to get ready for the season. It's in my situation. If you're Jeffrey, of course, then you're going to go to the first Grand Prix because you are the favourite for the World Championship, but you just can't catch up because you go from race to race to race, and if you haven't got that base level of fitness, you're not going to recover fast enough, and you just, by the time you get to 6th, 7th, 8th round, you're going to be completely destroyed, and you're not going to have there's no time to relax and get that time back. So that's why, in my opinion, motocross is the hardest sport, because there's so many different variables, different weather conditions, climates, the travel, the sheer physical attributes that you need to be good at motocross, how hard it is on your body, the risk. You can just the list keeps going on, as a lot of sports don't have that many variables. Maybe I'm a bit biased because I'm a motocross rider, but I can't think of a sport that's harder than motocross.
Stefan Everts always used to aim to peak physically sort of end of July, August time, 2/3 through the season.
Yeah.
Does that make that sound about right?
I think now you need to peak a little bit earlier, because when they was racing, there was a little bit less rounds. But now you've got 20 Grand Prix, and if you do a domestic championship as well, you've got another 8 rounds. You've got like 28 races to do on 28 weekends. So I think you definitely don't want to be peaking at the start, but I would say if you peak halfway through, then I'd say that's round about right. So like you said, June, maybe July, because you don't want to peak too early, because then you know what it's like. The end of the year is important for contracts and etc. So
that's why this year is going to be so hard to predict, because with 3 GPs in a week in Latvia and Lommel, if you have a problem on week 1, trace of those 3, you're effectively going to miss 2-3 GPs, and that's you out the season, isn't it? It could go either way this year.
Yeah, it's one of them problems where hopefully you don't come into anything like that. But yeah, if you twisted your ankle, for example, it's not really bad, but you need a good week off to recover. You just haven't got that time anymore. So it's definitely a challenge. It's something none of us have experienced before. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. And I'm just excited to get back to it. I can't even remember what the airport looks like. It's been that long since I've been on a plane. Normally I live in the place, so it can be a bit ridiculous. Like last year we did 98 flights.
98?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's including, like, if you go to Argentina, you need to do 3. So that's including stuff like that. But that, for me, last year was 98.
Wow.
I lived in Holland, so as well, like, when we had a weekend off, I was flying back. It's only 45-minute flight to Amsterdam to Manchester, so why not? But yeah, as you can imagine, if you do that many flights, you're absolutely sick of the airport.
So Argentina, going back to that, it's not the glamorous lifestyle. If you say to someone, "Oh yeah, I'm racing in Argentina next week," they think, "Oh, that's fantastic."
No, like the place is
How much do you
unbelievable.
actually see? How much do you see during that week?
So this is the thing. Okay, there you might see a little bit more because you might go on Tuesday, for example, and you get there Wednesday night. So then you've got Thursday and Friday if you haven't got too much media stuff to do. But yeah, nobody sees the 36 hours traveling there, and then they're getting an hour and a half in a taxi with all your kit bags everywhere. And then you get there, and then the first thing you do is take a photo of the nice lake, and you put that on your social media, and everyone thinks, God, look, that's unbelievable, isn't it, racing there? But then actually don't see that much. Like a normal Grand Prix, say, for example, Germany or Latvia or Sweden, we just fly Friday and fly home Sunday or Monday morning. So there is no time to look at anything. So you just go, you fly, you stay in a hotel, you go to the motocross track and you fly home. It's not like you get to go on holiday or see anything. The only time you get to see something is maybe the Indonesia rounds because there's 2 rounds there. So you stay there the week in between. But other than that, yeah, you don't get to sightsee or anything.
But it's better than a proper job, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Better than a normal job. Like I couldn't hack just staying in the same place all the time. But yeah, I suppose I'm used to it. And but yeah, it's definitely not what everyone follows on social media. You just see the good parts, don't you? So yeah, anyone who says motocross is an easy job, I always say, yeah, I'll swap you for the week and we'll see at the end.
This is it. So moving forward, obviously you've been putting a lot of training in for the restart of the season. What's going to happen going forward? What's your game plan, as it were, for the GPs?
So like I said, it's my 3rd Grand Prix back, so we haven't raced in such a long time, so nothing too crazy. I just want some solid results. The first 2 rounds, I had quite a lot of dramas, so they didn't go anything like I wanted. So I just want 2 good starts, a good Saturday. Oh, we haven't even got 2 days now, so a good Sunday morning, I guess, in time practice, I guess it's going to be. And 2 good starts, and I just want to enjoy riding and be fighting as high up as I can. If that's 10th, it's 10th. If that's further back, it's further back. I just want to go there, do what I've been working on, and wherever I am, and I will progress from there. I'm not one of them people who say like I want to go and be 10th, or something like that. I don't really have any goals. I've worked hard. I believe in myself and I go there, try my best, and wherever that is, that's it. That's where it is. I can go and improve on that. But yeah,
it's quite good though. There's passing opportunities there, aren't there?
Latvia is one of my favourite tracks. I really like that place, so I'm really happy that there's 3 rounds there and there's 3 rounds in Lommel because they're 2 really good tracks for me. So I can't complain at that, and yeah, I'm just excited to get back racing. I think it'll feel normal again then. Like this during lockdown and stuff's the complete, couldn't be any more opposite of what I'm used to. So it's been really weird and strange, to be honest, but it's nice to be able to have a date now where we are back racing and excited to get going.
So, Roger, do you reckon we should jump onto the Q&As?
I think it's that time.
Now, we've only had 2 or 3 sent in this week over Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of them we've probably already touched on earlier on in the podcast. But this one was sent in on Instagram, and it was, what is your favourite career moment and why?
Yeah, I get asked that question. I'll give you 2 because I think the obvious one is the Nations. I just don't see, unless I get on the Nations team in Matley and we get on the podium or we win a Nations or something, I don't see something being better than that. The whole experience, not just the racing and because where we finished, just the whole experience of the Nations is unbelievable. Second highlight would probably be winning the British Championship because of what we went through before earlier on the podcast, what I went through to win it, and it's been a goal of mine since I ever started watching racing. So I'd definitely say them 2.
Okay, moving forward, I mean, this is a little bit of a strange year. So what's more realistically, what are your goals for 2021?
So after, hopefully I get a good solid year this year. And I'd like to be back in MXGP and be more up the sharp end. I know I've got the speed. I know I can do it. Just getting the package right and solid winter. And good starts. You need good starts in MXGP. If you don't get good starts, then you might. It makes your life so much harder. So yeah, like I said before, I don't set goals, but it'll definitely be it's not my rookie. It won't be my rookie year anymore. So I would be looking to be more up the sharp end and a podium in MXGP would be unbelievable to make up for the ones I missed in MX2.
You say good starts. That's going back a few years in the 450 class when it was MX1 or whatever. You could pretty much not get a start and then work your way into a race 10 minutes in. A lot of riders used to do that. Now it's not like that. You've got to be on it right from the start.
Yeah, because the depth is too much. Like in Matley this year, I had last gate pick, terrible start. In the second motor, I come from last to 19th. When I with 5, 6, 7 minutes to go, I come over the finish jump and I'm like, right, 19th, who's in front of me? There was Van Horbeek, Jasikonis, Tonus, just in a line in front of me. And when you've got to try and pass them guys for 17th, 18th, 16th place, it's just they're extremely good riders. The next weekend in Volkswagen, Jasikonis won the qualifying race and got on the podium. So it's the depth in the MXGP class is that much that if you don't get a good start, it's difficult to pass them people. There's only a few people in that class who have got the speed to go from the back to the front, and what potentially only 2 or 3 in my opinion. So if you don't get a good start, then you're kind of, unless you're having a blinding race, struggling to go forward.
I know I've spoken to riders in the past and they've said the intensity mid-pack from sort of 12th down is way more than if you're in the top 10.
Yeah, because as well, I noticed in the MXGP class, you're fighting with real men, if you wish, who have been around the sport a long time. They're very clever, got so much experience. When you're trying to race people like Van Horbeek, you can't just, because I'm a bigger guy or whatever, you can't just muscle them out of the way or trick them with a pass, or they already see it coming. So the roost as well in the 450 class is something else. As in MX2, when I'm 22, go 23, and you've got a lot of younger riders in MX2 that are inexperienced, you can kind of go from the back towards the front or use your strength and size a little bit. But in MXGP, it just doesn't work. It's just not possible.
There we go. So going on to question 3. This is another Instagram question. This one is probably going to be a little bit difficult. What do you prefer, KTM or Kawasaki?
Oh no.
It's hard, isn't it?
Whichever pays most.
Yeah, KTM. I do get asked this question quite a lot, so I will answer it honestly. Kawasaki is a very good 250 bike, especially the ones from F&H. I had a really good bike last year. It handles really well, and but yeah, the dominance of KTM. I had 4 years on KTM with Steve. And I really loved the bike then. I've jumped straight back on now. I feel at home, and I think the results over the last 5, 6, 7 years of KTM prove something. And yeah, I would have to say KTM on that front.
Did you find there was a huge difference when you tried both the bikes, going from one to the other?
So I will explain it from when I went from KTM to Kawasaki, because I now went from Kawasaki 250 to KTM 450, so obviously the power is a big difference there. But when I went from KTM originally to Kawasaki, the first thing I noticed was it did handle a lot better in the corners. But I know this was quite a while ago, and KTM have improved that since. But obviously the Kawasaki lacks on power where the KTM doesn't, so there's definitely pros and cons. And I just think, like at Kawasaki, you have to spend so much more time and effort to get the bike as fast as a standard KTM. So then if you spend the same amount of time on a KTM as you did with a Kawasaki, for example, then I think you just have more power anyway. But both very good bikes. I enjoyed riding both. I had my most successful season I've ever had on a Kawasaki. So yeah, I have no complaints about the bike, and I'm happy to be back on KTM. And yeah, excited to get back racing.
There we go. Rod, do you want to add any more questions in before we do the outro, or you good?
Not really, no. I'm just looking forward, the same as everybody else, to, 3 weeks' time now, to Latvia. And then, all the talking comes to an end because we get out on track, and with that we see who's ready and who's not. And I'm sure, Adam, after the long wait, you can't wait to get back out on that start line.
Yeah, sure. Like I said before, good track for me. So just hope everybody watches it and enjoys watching the racing again. Hopefully, with it not being on for the TV for so long, I hope people don't complain as much and they sign up to MXGP TV and support the sport. And
Eurosport, of course.
Yeah, and Eurosport. How could I forget that?
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, to support the sport, support the riders, and enjoy watching live motocross again.
Well, I'm sure we'll be both tuned in. Roger, I know you'll be chatting away at some of the meetings, I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm just waiting on confirmation. That's the problem with the schedule keep changing. Then it's throwing everyone into a bit of confusion. But hopefully, it's all slotting into place now.
Well, fingers crossed. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a pleasure. I've an hour and a half that actually has gone really fast. So it's been good to speak to you and give my opinion on things. And it's not something I do over the internet that much, like on a post or anything. So it's nice to actually speak about it. And hopefully some people have took something away or enjoyed listening to it. So thanks for having me.
Perfect. Well, Roger, thank you again for joining us. I know it's probably given you something a bit more to do this week rather than crashing your mountain bikes that you have been doing.
Oh, you're not going to let me forget that, are you?
Did you have a big off, did you?
Have you not heard? The rest of the world has, apparently.
No, right. What did you do?
I tried to go at the same speed as all the local hotshots at our local mountain bike park. And
where is your local mountain bike park, actually?
Queen Elizabeth Country Park in Hampshire.
Okay.
I somehow ended up going down the black routes, which was a mistake. So I had a big crash, which would have been fine if it hadn't happened in front of a big group of people who were watching. So.
Oh, yeah, that's always the worst.
Yeah. So I am your typical all the gear, no idea, I'm afraid. That's why I talk about it and don't do it.
Are you on the e-bike hype, or you're not gone there yet?
Well, it's because I'm so old. I have to be on an e-bike.
Oh, you are on an e-bike.
Yeah, it's the
You're
future.
one of them that blast past me going up the hills, and then on the downhills, you hold me up. Okay,
it's the future, mate. It's the future. Definitely.
You get that. I live North Wales. There's loads of mountain biking places. You get some people who come flying up the hills, and then down the hills, I catch them back up. And then it's like, oh, the downhill's the best bit. I've just worked so hard to go up there, to go down the downhill, and now I can't go down the downhill fast.
Well, I'm never sure what the etiquette is when you're going uphill. You know, when you go past somebody who's on a normal bike, and do you sort of sit behind them, or do you say, "Excuse me"?
Nah, just blast past. Yeah. I would if I was on an e-bike. So
just because I can.
Yeah, just get it in turbo and.
Well, they're gonna catch me up on the downhill, as you said. So that's no problem, is there?
No.
Oh gosh. Well, make sure you stay safe this week, Roger. Once again, that rounds up episode 16 of the Live Motocross podcast. These are flying by each week now. Make sure you tune in to iTunes, Acast, Spotify. The next few weeks we'll have the episodes on YouTube, so you can tune in and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. But in the meantime, make sure you subscribe, and we shall see you on next week's episode.